Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my review for Power Rangers Dino Fury Episode 5. So this was an okay episode. A Green Ranger focused episode focused on debuting her Zord. I was a little bit worried based on the description because so far Dino Fury's been actually pretty good about the moral lessons. A lot less heavy-handed than recent years. And last week's episode was really good. And then I read the description for this week and I'm like, uh-oh, Lord bear me strength. But it didn't end up being so bad. I think it was like the most direct moral lesson we've had, but it wasn't that bad. But basically, it's funny because the plot for Izzy is that she's training for this big marathon going on alongside all the Ranger stuff. And so we catch up with her training at the beginning. And my first thought during the first few scenes, I was like, wait, didn't we just do this story last season about a Green Ranger training for a marathon? And then I remembered that was Kara Major. And there's oddly enough some sort of parallels to that plot in this. I don't think they necessarily based it off of that, but I did find that kind of to be a funny coincidence. But that's basically her plot while they're also trying to find the Zords. And Solon has gotten a lead onto where the Zords are because they're apparently sort of missing just like the Green and Black powers were. So they have a way of sort of finding it. They kind of deduce it would be in a similar area to Green and Black's. I'm kind of curious, or Green and Black's powers, but I'm kind of curious whether there's ever going to be any sort of important story as to why Green and Black were separated from the rest and whatnot, or if it's just for the sake of, you know, this plot of the fact that they have to explain why Green and Black didn't debut at the same time and do kind of special stories for the debut of Green and Black Zords. You know, I'm sure that was probably the main reason for this, but I'm kind of curious to see if they ever expand on it and if maybe there's going to be more of a storyline to why Green and Black were separated from the rest. I imagine Gold will probably have more given to that since he's the 6th Ranger. I don't know who will end up being, but you know what I mean, and so maybe we'll get an offhand mention there. I'm just kind of curious, and I also didn't expect the Zords to be separated from them. I honestly assumed Solon had the Green and Black Zords just like he had Pink and Blues. It was just the Ranger powers that were separated, but again, I think it was for the sake of the debut plot. So that's what's kind of going on there, and then a Sporks Beast attacks right when J-Bot and the Boss Lady are giving a presentation on it. And that has some kind of funny moments, kind of annoying moments. I'll talk a little bit about them later, but basically they're giving a presentation to kids about the Ranger hotline, and when that happens, a Sporks Beast shows up. The Rangers go to fight it, and then during/after the fight, Mucus finds out that they're after the Zords, and so he kind of puts the villains on the case, so they're looking for the Zords also, and Void Knight kind of conveniently happens to find this map from Area 62 that they had found this mysterious metal source that they never, you know, they found it, but they never followed up on it, I guess. I don't know why. A little bit convenient, but I also still like that idea of Area 62 as a base, and then being able to use resources. I think it would be a little more organic if it just wasn't so convenient. And it also seems funny that these people would have found it and then never tried to unearth it. But this plot isn't about Area 62. It's not called Power Rangers Area 62. But the bottom line is there's a race for the Zords. But then on the day of Izzy's race, that's when, is it the same day? Regardless, the time for Izzy's race, when that's happening, there's actually, to rewind for a second, there's actually kind of a funny scene where she's kind of worried about this fight she got in with her cousin, and like, not Chase, aka Javi, is like, oh, I know that look, you're gassy. And it's kind of, I thought it was gonna be like kind of a fart joke, but I actually thought it was kind of funny. I thought it was delivered funny, and then what made it funnier too was when her dad showed back up and he's like, oh, Izzy, what's wrong? Are you gassy? I don't know, I just thought the line was funny, so I wanted to talk about it, because I thought it was funny there was like a double punchline there. But anyway, when she's running is when the Sporks Beast attacks, and surprisingly enough, the Rangers tell her to keep running and that they got the situation handled. And I actually really like that, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. But basically what ends up happening is the message of the episode is like winning isn't everything, more or less. And so I thought what was going to happen was she was going to ultimately decide to leave the race to go help the Rangers because their backs were to the wall. You know, I could see the writing on the wall already with that type of story. But then her, like, pseudo-rival that she gives, like, shade glances to throughout the episode falls and sprains her ankle. So that's her lesson thing, is that she's like, okay, I'm going to help this girl instead. And she ends up being dead last because she helps her. I'm like, man, it must have taken a while to get her off of that hill because she ended up being dead last. And so I was like, okay, so I guess that's a surprise that it wasn't the Ranger thing. But then right after that, she just happens to overhear the villains digging for their Zord, which they're going to drop a bomb into. I felt like it was just too many things. It was just too many lessons. I'm like, okay, you got the fight with the cousin, the sprained ankle, and then the Ranger situation needing help. You get one thing. They're basically you're drilling a bomb to blow up the Zords. The villains, not the Rangers. I don't know why the Rangers would do that. But then they leave, and Izzy calls in and says, you know, they're about to blow up the Zords, and they come up with this plan to, like, trick the monster monster into blowing up the mountain to free the Zord before. And that's when we get the Tiger Lance, or the Tiger Claw Zord, and it does a little mini solo fight before we transform. And the Megazord formation is just called Dino Fury Megazord Tiger Formation, or Tiger Claw Formation. And I was kind of hoping it was going to be something different than that. Those whatever formation ones are just kind of boring a little bit. I didn't mind it so much for Dino Charge, but I don't know, I was hoping for a little something more. But basically, we get its debut fight and its Megazord formation debut fight, and they defeat the monster, but Boom Tower gets the Sporix Beast. It feels like every other time, like the Rangers get it and then the Sporix get it. The Rangers get it and then the Sporix get it, but he's got that this time. And that's where we kind of end off. We don't have blacks yet. I thought they were both together. I felt like most of the episode made it sound like their Zords were together, but I guess they're not. Again, I'm curious to see if we're ever going to get any backstory to that, or if it's only for the sake of the plot of them having to debut at different times. But to circle back to what I was going to talk about with the lesson of the week, like, something I really did appreciate, the thing I actually honed in on, wasn't the lesson of the week, and it was, I like that they let Izzy race. And usually when you get a plot like this, it's like, guys, we need your help. We need all these people to do one job, even though literally just one episode ago we were okay with 3 people. And so I kind of like it wasn't a huge focus, and that wasn't the focus at all. But I like that they let her just do the race, and that they would call her if they needed her, because they didn't need all of them. In fact, it was kind of funny when she first called for help. I was like, why didn't you send Javi? Because you know, he doesn't need to be in the Megazord. He doesn't even have a Zord there. He doesn't even go here. So that's what my first thought. So, but I kind of liked that. And, you know, usually these type of episodes are really heavy-handed with something like that, which is like, oh, our responsibility above all else, like, we need everyone to do one job. And I kind of like that they did that, and the Rangers never preached at her about anything, and it didn't feel as overly heavy-handed, and none of it made the Rangers feel like they were Pleasantville mannequins made to life. So I did appreciate that. And I do appreciate also just the plot kind of rolling one into the other. You know, we got the debut last week, we're doing the Zords, the villains are involved in it. I imagine next week we'll get blacks. Again, I'm curious to see if we'll have any reasoning as to why they were separate or not, other than the plot calls for it. But yeah, I thought it was a solid episode. I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5. Definitely not as good as last week's, but I thought it was very solid. But what did you guys think of the episode? What did you think of the debut of Green's Zord? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can just try my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.